Peloton, the premium exercise tech business with a cult-like following, loved by celebrities like Miley Cyrus and Usain Bolt, is in trouble. Lots of trouble. Their share price is not healthy, their founder is long gone, and they've just lost their second CEO in 2 years. The rumour mill would have you believe that Apple are coming to the rescue. But will Peloton ever get back to their COVID-driven peak? How can it be saved? Let's find out.
So in this video, we're going to look at 3 things. Firstly, we're going to explore the story of how John Foley came up with the idea and the remarkable story of how Peloton went from his original concept to a peak management valuation of $49 billion. Secondly, we'll look at what's gone wrong and where the business is today. Then, we're going to explore ideas for how Peloton can survive, what the future might look like, and if the Apple acquisition rumour has any substance to it. This is the story of Peloton, so far at least. John Foley is the founder and former CEO of Peloton. Foley was working at Barnes & Noble on their product Nook, which is their version of the Kindle, back in his pre-Peloton days. He was living in New York City and had the same typical lifestyle of any hard-working executive, struggling to fit in exercise. Now, spin classes, in particular Soul Cycle spin classes, were all the rage. You would book onto a class, and like any spinning class, you would be in a room alongside a load of other spinners with high quality instruction, great music, and a lot of energy. The problem for Foley was that he would go to book onto a class and find that it was already fully booked or didn't fit in with his schedule. Cue lightbulb on, penny drop moment. Foley realized that spinning was the perfect landscape for a digital tech play. The idea was simple: give people the ability to stream a spinning class anytime, anywhere they wanted. No issue of classes fully booked, no need for a physical space, and no need to be in a set place at a set time. Add in gamification, real-time data, leaderboards, etc., and you get more out of yourself and come back more often. Now, his idea was in the first place to be very much a software play. The original idea was to create an application that could run on an iPad and provide customers with a way to connect their iPad to any spin bike in the world. But most of the at-home spin bikes or exercise bikes were not at the same level as the ones in a proper spinning studio, and Foley quickly decided that to get the right user experience, they would need to look at making the bike itself. Still, the idea was to mount an iPad to the bike, but Foley didn't want to be reliant forever on what Apple might do with its iPad ports and connectivity. The last thing he wanted to do was build an entire product line that might not work if Apple changed the ports on its products. Something that, of course, Foley and Peloton would have no control over. So they quickly worked out that they needed to build an application, a bike to ride on, and a tablet. But they didn't also want to be a content company. So Foley had an idea. They wanted a partner, and who better to partner with than Soul Cycle themselves? Foley entered into discussions with Soul Cycle for the partnership. Soul Cycle would provide the content from their excellent instructors filmed in their very popular and in-person studios, and then share it across the Peloton platform. But Soul Cycle didn't take the deal, and Peloton ended up with no choice but to become a content business. Interesting side note, Soul Cycle now actually has a Peloton competitor product. So that initial software-only idea had now become an idea for a company that makes bikes, tablets, and produces high-quality content. All that sounds expensive, and it is. Peloton and Foley needed cash. They raised an initial $400,000 in seed money from friends and family, but that was a drop in the sweat bucket. Peloton was going to need a lot more money, and Foley basically became a full-time fundraiser. He pitched to 3 investors every day for 3 years. Pretty much everyone was saying no. The problem was that his idea was not simple, nor was it an obvious win. It was complex, expensive, and new, which meant there was no data to show how it would work. Conventional investment thinking made it an easy pass. Eventually, Foley managed to raise a £10 million round from more than 100 different angel investors. Whilst Foley was busy pitching investors and getting enough money in the door to keep his company alive, the team were busy designing their product. They went out to Taiwan to find partners and manufacturers and spent 2 years prototyping, iterating, and testing different designs and components, all for the smallest budget as possible. The first prototype ended up being about 40% bigger than a normal bike, by accident, but they needed to make it look like a success for their investors and photos for their marketing material, so they hired a really tall model to make the photos look like the bike was a normal size. The second prototype was a normal size, but this time it was really unstable and wobbly when riding. Eventually they had a model they were happy with, so partly for sales and partly for cash, they decided to run a Kickstarter campaign. Now in this video from the 2013 Kickstarter, you can see the product looks very similar to the models you can buy today. I'll drop a link to the original Kickstarter page so you can see in the description below. They started the bike at $1,500 price point for the Kickstarter and raised more than $300,000 from the campaign. But it wasn't quite the success that it may appear. Foley later said that whilst the Kickstarter didn't technically fail, most of the backers were existing investors who were supporting the campaign. The lack of enthusiasm from just normal consumers left everyone at Peloton questioning if the product had a future. So, Peloton now had a business, it had some customers, and it had its flagship product. But they now had three main problems. First, they needed to start producing high quality content for their initial customer base to enjoy. Second, they needed to work out how to sell their bikes to more people, a lot more people. And thirdly, they were still trying desperately to raise more cash. To tackle problem one, they decided to convert part of their office into a makeshift content studio, and they placed adverts saying that they wanted the 10 best spin instructors in the world, ambitious as ever. They hired Jen Sherman as their very first instructor. Jen's energy and skills instructor got them off to the perfect start, and they never really looked back. Today, Peloton instructors are widely considered to be some of the best on the planet. They can earn up to $1 million a year as a result, and they're minor celebrities.
For those of you that have been watching closely, you will notice that my shirt has changed. That's because I actually recorded this a few weeks ago and there was a problem with the sound. So now I need to re-record it, and here we are. Anyway, carry on with the story. Foley and then the team believed that if people could try the Peloton bike, they would get it, they would love it. So to tackle problem two, they decided to do something a little unusual for a tech startup with no money: retail. Retail, as we all know, has long been on the decline, but Peloton decided to open a pop-up shop so people could try the bike. The product was selling for $2,000 a time, so the thought process was that people really might need to try this before they would buy it, before they would commit to such a large expense. The numbers suggested that the pop-up shop would need to sell one bike per day for it to be successful. They targeted affluent areas and high-end retail shopping centres, but it worked very well, very well. The first pop-up shop was selling 5 units per day. The theory was right. Once people tried it, they understood it, wanted it, and loved it. To tackle the third problem, well, Foley kept doing his fundraising thing, and eventually in 2015, Peloton announced a Series C funding to the tune of $44 million, led by Tiger Global Venture Capital. Tiger would go on to make an estimated $1 billion profit from the deal. The Series C was the first domino, and Peloton would go on and raise close to $1 billion in pre-IPO investment from institutional money. Now, this is the part of the story where things just grow, things just go well. Peloton used the investment to ramp up its content production. They hired the best instructors they could find, they improved software, and put out on their own distribution to deliver the bikes and set them up in your home for you. They drove both online and in-store sales and went really big on brand. What worked really well for Peloton, and perhaps something that I've undersold to this point in the story, is that people loved their product. I mean, they really loved them. I'm a Peloton owner myself, and I can personally state that this is an exceptionally good piece of equipment, and I love it, and I'm not alone. The brand is loved by its customers in a similar way to how we love Apple, Nike, or Tesla. People are fans of these brands in the same way that we love sports teams. We identify with them. We're proud to be a part of their ecosystem. Peloton is a cult-like brand. And this isn't limited to ordinary people like you or me. Celebrities like Taylor Swift and sports people like Venus Williams, Roger Federer, and Rory McIlroy are just a few of the icons that love their Pelotons as much as the rest of us. This brand love gave Peloton a cachet. It made it desirable, sexy. Peloton is cool. So putting all that growth, money, and love together, you get a bigger and bigger set of numbers. And by 2019, they'd scaled their user base to just under 1 million people. Annual revenues at Peloton were close to $1 billion. However, revenue is not profit, and all these investments come with a cost. In 2019, they lost $240 million. We all know that fast-growing tech companies with good revenues, loads of users, and lots of investments don't really need to make money. So in September 2019, it was time for Peloton to go public. The big IPO brought Peloton onto the market $29 per share and a market cap of $8.1 billion. Champagne corks popped, John Foley and his team no doubt celebrated for days. But those celebrations were only the start of the financial success for Peloton investors. Now, a lot is made of product market fit. It's a buzz phrase for all startups and tech companies, and it happens when you create something that satisfies the demands of a particular set of circumstances. In 2020, a set of circumstances presented themselves that unexpectedly created the perfect demand for the Peloton product: the COVID pandemic. The Peloton core product, of course, is an at-home solo exercise machine that gives you a social experience virtually. While I'm sure that they didn't want it to happen, Peloton could not have imagined a better set of circumstances for their company than a pandemic in which healthy people are made to stay at home for months on end. The connected fitness market exploded in the aftermath of the pandemic. Fitness mirrors, apps, online training, you name it, everyone was looking for ways to stay fit at home. And Peloton took full advantage. Their user numbers, sales, revenues, and of course share price rocketed as a direct result. And that initial $29 per share climbed all the way up to $167, a market valuation of $49 billion. So there you have the boom, the story of how Peloton started, overcame all those startup hurdles, and grew into a beloved brand and stock market must buy. Now for part two, the decline. The share price peak was in December 2020, and it was in December 2020 that the decline really started. Peloton announced the Bike Plus, a new product designed to be an upgrade on their flagship offering. At the same time, they lowered the price of their original bike and went big on advertising campaigns to push the Plus.
The Peloton Bike Plus is the ultimate bike experience that combines both cardio and strength to bring us the most incredible workout.
The problem was that the Plus was not really any better than the original bike. The additional features did nothing to enhance the experience in any meaningful way, and it did not sell well. Peloton then announced two big moves. First, the acquisition of Precor to help them build out their manufacturing for a reported $420 million. And second, an initial $400 million investment into their own new production facility. $820 million gone. Then they had to recall some of their treadmills due to safety concerns, but worst of all, they started missing their earnings targets. The sales had slowed right down. By December 2022, the share price had fallen from that high I was telling you about, $167, to just $35 a share 12 months later. In January 22, Peloton announced that they had a backlog of hardware. They'd not been selling product. They'd not been doing enough sales fast enough, so they decided to stop production for the time being. This leads to another share price drop, now down to $25. Then in February, Peloton founder and CEO John Foley announced that he was stepping down from the position to become executive chairman. Barry McCarthy was the man chosen to replace him at the helm. Foley left the company entirely in 2023. The founder was gone. McCarthy was unable to turn the company around, and despite changes of strategy on manufacturing, an enhanced focus on subscribers over hardware sales, and a significant restructure to both the team and cost structure of the business, the share price has continued to fall. And in May 24, McCarthy stepped down as CEO, and another round of layoffs is currently underway. The board have appointed co-interim CEOs in Karen Boone and Chris Brozo. They're running a company with more than 3,000 staff that's losing over $1 billion a year, and the share price has continued to tumble. Today, it's as low as $3.40 per share. Financial success has always been a challenge for Peloton. Their product is expensive to make, it's expensive to sell, it's expensive to ship, and it's expensive to buy. They spend on retail, content production, and top-tier instructors. One piece of analysis by Acquired talks about music licensing for the tunes in the classes being as much as 20% of the monthly subscription fee. They need to retain users for a long time to just break even on them. In truth, it looks like Peloton might be doomed, destined to be a company, condemned to the pages of history. But can it rise again? Where can Peloton go from here? And what can they do to turn it around? Are they an attractive acquisition? Is there another route back? Let's see. Let's start with the obvious stuff. Do they have any product innovation up their sleeves? Historically, basically no tech company survives if they only have one product and it can't evolve. The original Peloton bike is a great product, but everything else they've done since has been pretty poor in comparison. There's possibly an argument that they made their first bike too good, but regardless, if they have other ideas, now is the time. And if they don't have any other ideas, do they really deserve to survive? They have a great brand and they produce great content. They've created a system and an infrastructure that allows them to provide classes on demand all over the world. Could they take any of those assets and do licensing deals to generate additional revenue? A company that is losing money at the rate they are needs to look at their cost base. They're carrying 3,000 staff. Can they cut away costly things like their own distribution, maybe adapt their product to be self-set up, use a distribution partner to deliver at a cheaper rate? Can they find a retail partner and scale back their own efforts and expenses on retail? One of the most discussed points on Peloton is price. It's widely considered to be expensive. Now, there's nothing wrong with a premium product, but it's very hard to get scale. Should Peloton look at producing a cheaper version of their flagship bike? Tesla, for example, started with a premium car, but walked it back from there to make more affordable products and grow their customer base. Now, Peloton are first and foremost a bike company. Should they make real bikes? They could buy a cycling team and win the Tour de France by making the best road bikes in the world. A step away from their core? Perhaps, but possibly a lucrative market. Should they look at the Swift model, create a smart trainer for people to dock their road bikes and access the Peloton classes using their own bikes, possibly opening up a whole new market of users? Or should they look at something more revolutionary? Can they open up their platform to independent instructors and allow people to create their own content for subscribers? Kind of like a YouTube come OnlyFans for fitness? If they don't turn it around, then will someone come in and pick up the pieces? Now, Deepwater Asset Management have predicted that Apple is set to buy Peloton in 2024, which on the surface of it might make a lot of sense. Apple already have retail. The brand seems in line with the Apple cult-like status. Peloton integrates both hardware and software in a very Apple-esque way. And of course, the Peloton user base might be of interest to Apple, who previously acquired Beats headphones. On the other hand, does Apple need to acquire Peloton? It already has connected fitness tech via the Apple Watch. It already has fitness streaming through Apple Fitness, plus the fact that Peloton OS is built on Android, which seems to make this less straightforward than it might have first looked. If not Apple, then might somebody else fancy Peloton? Nike has the retail arm. Peloton could become the tech hardware division of Nike. If not Nike, who else might want to buy such a beloved brand? Finally, but also firstly, they need a mentality shift. When McCarthy was appointed as CEO, he was given a $168 million salary. That is not the mindset required for a company fighting for its life. They've more than 3,000 staff and have taken steps to acquire companies for hundreds of millions of dollars. For me, they need to start by cutting their cloth to something more suitable and work out a way to stop losing money. Motivated and focused groups of people can achieve a lot when constrained. They have a fantastic core product. They just need to work out a way to run their company as good as their product. Peloton didn't want to build bikes. They didn't want to make tablets. They didn't want to make content. They ended up doing all three. Now all they need to do is work out how to survive. I hope that was helpful and that you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in this type of content, then please subscribe for more and have a great day. Take care. See you next time. Bye.